Hi, everyone. It's Miss Diane from the Kinsman Free Public Library. Welcome to First Chapter Friday. Today, I'm reading to you a couple chapters from a new book by author Avi. The story is called Ragweed and Poppy. You may be familiar with these characters from the Dimwood Forest series. This is the seventh book in the collection and a prequel to the series. So growing up, I loved animal stories, and some of my favorites were, let's see here, Charlotte's Web, Misty of Chinkatink, The Mouse and the Motorcycle, and of course, Winnie the Pooh. But this is a story about helping others in need, and the story of how Ragweed and Poppy first meet. So let's begin. Ragweed wanders and wonders. With much rattling, banging, and squealing, the long freight train began to move, and Ragweed, a golden mouse with dark orange fur, round ears, and a somewhat short tail, looked out through the open doorway of an empty boxcar. As the world whizzed by, he sighed and brushed away a few tears. One of the tears slid down a whisker and fell with a gentle plip. It had been an amazing adventure, leaving his forest home and family, mother, father, and all those younger brothers and sisters at the brook. Getting to Amperville, meeting the female city mouse named Clutch, who was so different and so fascinating. The excitement of the city, learning the city's language, struggling with the terrible cats, particularly Silversides, and meeting that sweet mouse Blinker. The final triumphant battle against the cats, only to learn that Blinker and Clutch were going to be together and that he, Ragweed, was in the way and that he needed to move on. Though he knew going away was the right thing to do, he felt sad, and fondly Ragweed touching the earring, a small purple plastic bead on a short metal loop that dangled from his left ear. It was Clutch and Blinker who had given it to him as a going-away present. Thinking of his friends, Ragweed already missed them, even as he hoped they were happy. Ragweed was not. He asked himself, was the train moving too fast or not fast enough? Hey, he thought, I need to be alone, somewhere that'll give me peace and quiet. You're going off to like a brand new venture, but where? He told himself. That brought a new thought. Am I a country mouse or a city mouse? I talk like a city mouse and I feel like a country mouse. What am I? He remembered how shortly after he left the brook, he came to a fork in the road. There was an old vole that had told him that one road went to Dimwood Forest and the other led to the city. Ragweed chose to go to the city, promising he'd go to the forest someday. Okay, he said, someday is today. Forest time. He lifted his head and as loudly as he could sang his family's favorite song. A mouse will a roving go along wooded paths and pebbled waves to places high and places low, where birds do sing these sunny rays, for the world is full of mice, oh, for the world is full of mice, oh. Then Ragweed cupped his paws around his mouth and shouted, Dimwood Forest, here I come. Except he told himself he didn't know where Dimwood Forest was. And then he remembered the old saying, if you don't know where you're going, any road will do. That thought gave Ragweed some cheer, but not much, and he asked himself what he had learned during the dangers he'd faced in Amperville. Okay, the best way to stay safe was not to poke his pink nose or toes into other creatures' problems. Dimwood Forest, Ragweed said the words again. Sounds like a place where I can be alone and decide what I am. Cool. A mouse has to do what a mouse has to do. As the train sped on, Ragweed worked hard to soothe his gloomy spirits by sitting near the edge of the boxcar doorway and watching the shifting scene. The human houses, cars, trees, flowers, and meadows, they all flew by like wind-blown leaves even as the train whistled long and low. An hour later, the train began to slow down, and with much bumping, banging, and clanking, it came to a stop. Curious to learn why, Ragweed stuck his head out of the boxcar doorway. Right alongside his train lay another set of tracks, and beyond these tracks was a forest whose green and wildwood fragrance smelled delightsome. Maybe this is Dimwood. Might as well get off and find out. And he edged closer to the doorway, braced his legs, and readied himself to leap from the boxcar when there was an explosive burst of air as another train roared by on the parallel tracks, moving so fast it was little more than a blur. Terribly frightened, Ragweed dived deep into the boxcar, eyes squeezed shut, taking rapid, deep breaths. Body trembling, he put a paw to his chest, wanting to reassure himself that his heart was still beating. And it was, wildly. "Dude," he managed to whisper, "you just dodged being dusted." "Okay," he told himself when he had calmed down. "Sometimes doing nothing is better than doing something." He crept back to the open boxcar doorway, planted his feet firmly on the threshold, and peeked out. And the world was still there, but he didn't even think of jumping out. And within moments, the train started up and soon regained its former speed. The whistle sounded, and the things he had seen before, trees, flowers, human houses, and cars sped by. Then once again the train halted, and Ragweed peeked out. What he saw was a cluster of houses, cars, and people. A human village. "Don't want to be around humans," he told himself. "It's too risky. They don't like mice, and I need a place where I can't be biffed." As the train resumed its rolling rumble, Ragweed realized that his recent scare had made him hungry. He lifted his nose. A scent of something good was in the air. He peered into the boxcar's depths and only then noticed that in a far shadowy corner was a rumpled brown paper bag that smelled of food. Scurrying over, he sniffed it. Something good. And using his front paws as well as his teeth, Ragweed made a hole. A captivating fragrance wafted out. Poking his head through the hole, Ragweed saw a piece of bread smeared with a thick, nutty brown paste. The aroma was wonderful, and there was nothing Ragweed loved more than nuts. He scooped up a gob of the paste and tasted it. "Nice," he murmured. "The world's best food. Peanut butter." Ragweed settled down and helped himself to a good meal, and after stuffing himself, he decided to leave the rest for later. "No idea how far I'm going," he reminded himself, "but this is the coolest way to travel." Altogether relaxed and well-fed, the steady rocking and rolling of the boxcar made him sleepy. "It's nap time," he thought. He shaped a hollow on the paper bag big enough for him to curl into, and once there, he snuggled down and closed his eyes. Even as he did, the train began to slow down until once more it came to a full, shuddering halt. Deciding it didn't matter, Ragweed took a deep breath. "Nuts, nobody, and being nowhere," he said. "Nothing better." And he drifted off into an easy sleep. Moments later, Ragweed heard an irritating scratching noise that roused him from his snooze. Drowsy, he resisted looking. Only when the sounds came again, screech, louder and much annoying, did he partially open his eyes. And at first, Ragweed could see nothing. It took the scratchy sound repeating itself a third time for him to sit up and peer about. "What is that?" he wondered. It was when he turned toward the boxcar's open doorway that he saw a small gray paw with 5 long claws appear over the edge. A second paw, with an equal number of claws, did the same thing. A soft grunt came, and Ragweed watched, astonished, as the animal heaved itself into the boxcar. "Look at these paws. What animal do you believe it belongs to?" "They're way bigger than mouse paws, that's for sure." In Chapter 2, we'll find out who these paws belong to. Ragweed had never seen a creature like it. About the size of a cat, it was covered with dark gray fur, save for its chest, which was white. Its ears were round and slightly pointy. A black nose was sharp, surrounded by white fur and long white whiskers. A swath of black fur enclosed its dark, bright eyes. That black fur was in turn encircled by white fur. So it looked as if the creature was wearing a mask. Its tail was bushy and long, with alternating black and gray stripes. Its forepaws, Ragweed noticed again, each had 5 claws. Do you know what kind of animal this might be? I think I know. Once the animal had climbed into the boxcar, it sat upon its rump, looked all about as if puzzled by its surroundings, all the while making soft, breathy, anxious sounds. What kind of creature is this? Ragweed kept asking himself. What's making it nervous? Okay, remember, do not poke your whiskers into other creatures' lives. So he remained still and watched, and hoping the animal would go away. And the animal sniffed a few times, and a pink tongue popped out and licked its nose. Uh-oh, thought Ragweed. It's hungry. Maybe it wants to eat me. The train then gave a lurch and began to move, resuming its rapid pace, and when it did, the animal whirled about and gazed open-mouthed out the boxcar doorway. At first, it seemed to do no more than stare, as if unable to grasp what was happening, and then it let forth a groan, suggesting deep misery. Something was wrong. As Ragweed continued to watch, the creature edged closer to the boxcar doorway, lifted one of its paws, and stuck it out into the air. The 5 long claws seemed to be feeling the passing wind, trying to grasp what it was, and then it crouched back up upon its rear legs as if prepared to jump. Before Ragweed could think what he was doing, he shouted, Dude, don't do it! Startled, the animal looked around. This train is going too fast, Ragweed shouted. Trust me, Bozo, if you jump now, you'll butter your brain. Who's that talking to me? Stammered the frightened creature as it gazed around the boxcar in search of the voice. You see what kind of animal it is? It's a raccoon. It's me, Ragweed. What's a me ragweed? A mouse. I've never seen a me ragweed mouse before. Where are you? What do you look like? Over here, dude, in this corner. Can you make yourself bigger? The animal asked, and Ragweed stood up. See me now? Is that all you are? Sorry, said Ragweed. Mice are small. And he cocked his head to one side, touching his earring to reassure himself, and then he said, Why am I asking what you are? What do you think? I'm a raccoon. And what's your name? Lotar. The raccoon studied Ragweed intently, but then turned to glance out of the boxcar doorway again, clearly much more concerned with what had happened, that the train was moving fast and the world was speeding by. And to Ragweed's surprise, he saw tears form at the corner of Lotar's bright eyes and tears that began to roll down along his furry cheeks. Hey, raccoon, called Ragweed. What's your problem? Lotar stared out of the boxcar doorway. It's my mama. She's back there. And he made a vague motion with a paw, even pointed with a claw, and more tears fell. Well, how'd that happen? I was with Mama in a rock cave in the forest. It was all cozy, and she went to sleep, and I did too, but when I woke up, she was still sleeping. But I was hungry, only I didn't want to wake her. Mama loves to sleep during the day, so I thought I might get a little something to eat by myself. And so I went to find some food and walked a really long time through the woods. And after a while, I smelled something good. It was at the bottom of a gully. And when I looked down into that gully, this huge thing was sitting here. It's called a train, said Ragweed. Well, I never saw one before, and it wasn't moving, not a bit. But I smelled something delicious, and the way was open. Did it smell like nuts? Asked Ragweed, hoping it wasn't him that smelled good. I didn't know what it was, said Lotar, except it seemed tasty, and since I was very hungry, I jumped up really high, and I never jumped so high in my whole life, and got in here. But then Mama went away. The raccoon lifted his head, and he just howled. No, said Ragweed, you're the one who went away. The train moved. Why? Asked Lotar with still another sniff. Did it do that? It's what trains do, said Ragweed. The raccoon looked back at the boxcar doorway, opened his wide mouth, showing many teeth, and he just cried, "I want my mama!" And tears began to flow again. "You're awfully big," suggested Ragweed, "to be crying about your mother. How old are you?" "2 months," said Lotar. "Oh, okay, fine. You are a baby. That's what Mama says. How old are you?" "5 months," said Ragweed. "Can you imagine at 2 and 5 months being away from your mama? Now, that might be something that animals can do, certainly not something humans can do." The raccoon studied the mouse. "If I'm younger," he said, "how come I'm bigger?" "This animal," thought Ragweed, "has as much smarts as a splat of spit." Excuse me asking, do raccoons eat mice?" "I don't know. I never saw a mouse before." "What do you know?" "I know I love my mama and I hate dogs and snakes and people, and mama hates them too. She says if I see any of those things, I should run away fast. They bite, and it's no fun getting bites." "Well, your mama isn't here, and I'm not a snake, dog, or people, but your mama is right. Keep away from them." "What's a people?" he asked. "Tall, two-legged creatures with fur on the tops of their heads," said Ragweed. As Ragweed studied the raccoon, he reminded himself of something. At home at the brook, his own mamma had taught him that he must always look after youngsters. Well, Ragweed wasn't very empathetic. He didn't know if he wanted to help this raccoon, but he did remember this. And he remembered his kid brother, Rye. This raccoon was as young as his brother. He certainly should help him. And so he said, "You better come over here and eat something. It'll make you feel better." Lotar waddled to where Ragweed was, and the mouse, all too aware how big the baby raccoon was compared to him, scooted out of the way. The raccoon sniffed at the bag and with his two front paws made Ragweed's hole in the bag much bigger. Then he pushed his nose inside the bag and found the food and picked it up with his paws and began to gobble. As he ate, he made loud chewing noises as well as splutters and gulps. Though Ragweed wasn't uneasy by how fast this baby raccoon ripped through the bag with his claws, he said nothing. He is quite a bit bigger than the mouse. "Do you have to make so much noise when you eat?" he asked, and Lotar looked around. "Mama always says that too. Sounds like you need to be told what's going down and up." "All I know," protested the raccoon as tears began to fall again, "is that Mama is gone, which means there's no one to tell me what to do." "How about, using your brain?" suggested Ragweed. "I'm sorry," said Lotar. "I'm so young I don't have much of a brain." To prove it, he sat down and looked as if he didn't know what to do next. Do you happen to know the name of your forest?" "Dimwood Forest." "Truly?" "That's what Mama calls it." And that's when Ragweed had this idea. "This raccoon says he lives in Dimwood Forest. Okay, maybe if I help him find his mama, I can get where I want to go." "I'll tell you what," said Ragweed. "I'll help you find your mother." And then he added, "Remember, the only one I'm running with is me. When we get you home, put me down as up and out. But if we're going to get there, the first thing we need to do is get off this train." "You told me I shouldn't get off." "Oh, you can when the train stops." Lotar rubbed his face with his claws, then pulled on his whiskers, and tears began to flow again. "But if the train keeps moving, won't I get farther away from her?" "Don't worry. It seems to stop a lot, and next time it does, all we have to do, is get off." "But then where would we look?" "Like you said, in your forest." "Alone?" There were more tears. "With me," Ragweed shouted. "Be patient," he told himself. "He's going to get you to Dimwood Forest." "What if there are those people in the woods, or snakes, or dogs?" said Lotar. "Mama said keep away from them." The raccoon put his nose near Ragweed's face again. "Would you maybe please, since you're older and smarter, could you go first when we look for her?" Ragweed considered Lotar. "I hope this idea of mine works." He put a paw to his earring by way of reassuring himself that he was doing the right thing. What's that hanging from your ear?" asked Lotar. An earring. What's it for? Something friends gave to me. Did you lose them? Ragweed, wishing it wasn't so hard to be with an annoying raccoon, said nothing. I'll be your friend, said Lotar, your best friend, and you can be my best friend. I don't want friends, said Ragweed. Anyway, you're too big. That's silly. I'm small mama who's big. But when the train stops, will you really, really help me find her? The raccoon pushed his nose right up against Ragweed again. Extra, extra, please? Ragweed put both paws against Lotar's nose and with all its strength tried to shove the animal away. The raccoon didn't budge, and gasping for breath, Ragweed said, Don't you listen. I already told you I would. Now move. Thank you, said the raccoon. As he pulled back, I'm going to sleep. And then abruptly said, Wake me when the train stops. Mouse, I'm glad you're my best friend. With that, Lotar stepped away from Ragweed, laid down, curled himself up in a ball, put his paws over his eyes, and instantly fell asleep. Ragweed stared at the raccoon. It took him a moment to realize that he was sleeping right on top of the paper bag. No more food for me. He went over to the boxcar doorway and gazed out. And though it was growing dark, he could see they were racing through more woodland. For a moment, he felt the temptation to get away from the raccoon. But he was alone. He was looking for his mama, and he could lead him to the dimwood forest. He walked into a far corner of the boxcar as far as he could get away from the raccoon, and he laid down and went to sleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, Ragweed sensed the train had stopped and was now moving in the opposite direction. Now where are we going? He asked himself. And then, I wonder how Clutch and Blinker are doing. But his last thought before falling back into a deep sleep was, tomorrow I'll be in Dimwood Forest. What a great adventure Ragweed is going to have. He's such a small mouse with a big dream on this journey to decide if he is a country mouse or a city mouse. So this is a great middle school novel, action-packed, of course, an adventure story, and a perfect chapter book for those who love animals. So some of my current favorites beyond this series are Pax, about a fox, The Tale of Despereaux, about a mouse, Mercy Watson, about a pig, The One and Only Ivan, about a gorilla and an elephant, and Tum Tum and Nutmeg, about more mice. There seems to be a theme here. I seem to like a lot of stories about mice. And I'm also very curious to dive into this brand new book, Delphine and the Silver Needle, of course, featuring another mouse in Cinderella's kingdom. So I will hope you check out some of these stories. I hope you will love Poppy and Rye as much as I do. Actually, Ragweed and Poppy. If you don't, you can read this one out of order, even though it's the 7th one in the series. It's a prequel to the entire Dimwood Forest series. But if you want to start in order, you can check out Poppy, then Poppy and Rye, and of course, Ragweed. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.